There's a sailboat that thousands of men over 60 are buying right now, and if you don't know what it is, you're missing the opportunity of a lifetime. While the marine industry collapses around us, while legendary outboard brands prepare to disappear before Super Bowl LX, while dealers liquidate and prices crater, one specific vessel has quietly become the perfect answer for men seeking independence, adventure, and escape from the financial chaos consuming American boating. What I'm about to reveal isn't just a boat recommendation. It's a complete strategy for how men over 60 can reclaim freedom on the water, while everyone else loses their shirts in the worst marine market collapse since the Great Depression. By the end of this investigation, you'll understand why this particular sailboat is the ideal choice for solo sailing. The three critical factors that make it perfect for men in their 60s and beyond, and most importantly, how the current market crisis has created a once-in-a-generation opportunity to acquire this vessel for a fraction of what it's truly worth. This isn't about chasing youth or proving anything to anyone. This is about smart men making strategic decisions that give them options, mobility, and adventure at a stage in life when most people are settling into routines they'll regret. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn will fundamentally change how you think about retirement, recreation, and what's possible when you understand value in places nobody else is looking. Let me start by showing you the crisis that's creating the opportunity, because understanding the collapse is critical to understanding why now is the moment to act. In 2021, America's outboard engine market shattered sales records. The National Marine Manufacturers Association reported retail outboard sales exceeding 330,000 units, numbers not seen since before the Great Recession. Dealers scrambled for inventory as Americans, flush with stimulus money and trapped by pandemic restrictions, suddenly rediscovered boating. Power boats flew off dealer lots. Outboards sold above sticker price. Waiting lists stretched for months. But sailboats, particularly older production sailboats without engines or with small auxiliary diesels, these got overlooked in the frenzy. While powerboat buyers were paying premiums and waiting in line, sailboats sat quietly at moorings and in marinas, their owners aging, their values stable but unremarkable. Nobody was fighting over them, nobody was speculating on them. They were just boats, doing what boats do, waiting for sailors who understood their value. Then the market shifted. As the world reopened and pandemic buyers realized the true cost of boat ownership, the powerboat market collapsed. Engines worth $30,000 in 2023 struggled to find buyers at $18,000 today. Dealers are drowning in floor plan debt. Major brands face bankruptcy. The marine industry is in full crisis mode, and fortunes are being lost by people who bought at the peak. But sailboats, especially quality production sailboats from respected manufacturers, have followed a different trajectory. Their values declined modestly as recreational boating broadly softened, but they didn't crater because they were never caught up in the speculative bubble. Sailboat owners tend to be different from powerboaters. They're more committed to the lifestyle, less susceptible to impulse purchases, more knowledgeable about what they own. When the market turned, they didn't panic sell. They either kept sailing or they sold to buyers who knew what they were getting. The result is a market that's soft but stable, filled with opportunity for buyers who know what to look for. And right now, if you're a man over 60 looking for the perfect vessel for solo sailing, there is one specific model that stands above every alternative: the Hallberg Rassy 34. Before I explain why this boat is perfect, let me tell you what it isn't. It isn't the biggest sailboat you could buy. It isn't the fastest. It isn't the most modern or the most technologically advanced. It isn't going to turn heads at the yacht club or impress people who measure boats by length and price. What it is exactly what a man over 60 needs for solo sailing, and understanding why requires understanding what solo sailing actually demands. Solo sailing isn't about proving you can handle a massive vessel single-handed. It's not about pushing limits or taking unnecessary risks. It's about having a boat that's sized appropriately for one person to manage safely, that's built well enough to be reliable and forgiving, that's designed thoughtfully so systems are accessible and maintenance is manageable, and that's seaworthy enough to handle conditions you might encounter without requiring a full crew to keep you safe. Size matters, but not the way most people think. Bigger isn't better for solo sailing. Bigger means heavier anchors, larger sails, more complex systems, more things that can go wrong, and more physical demand in every task from docking to sail changes to routine maintenance. For a man in his 60s, even one in good physical condition, there's no shame in recognizing that a 34-foot boat is infinitely more manageable than a 40-footer and far more enjoyable than struggling with a vessel that's too much boat for one person. The Hallberg Rassy 34, built by the Swedish manufacturer Hallberg Rassy from 1982 through 1991, occupies a sweet spot that few other production sailboats achieve. It's large enough to be comfortable for extended cruising, with standing headroom, a proper galley, comfortable sleeping accommodations, and adequate storage. But it's small enough that one person can handle it confidently, with sail plans that are manageable, ground tackle that doesn't require superhuman strength, and systems that are straightforward rather than complex. Build quality is where Hallberg Rassy separates from most production boats. These weren't built in massive factories cranking out boats by the hundreds. They were built in Sweden by craftsmen who took pride in construction details that most manufacturers skip. The hulls are solid fiberglass, heavy layups designed for strength and longevity rather than lightweight and racing performance. Deck-to-hull joints are through-bolted and glassed, not just relying on mechanical fasteners. Bulkheads are structurally integrated. Chain plates are massive and properly backed. These are boats built to go to sea and come back. Built by people who understood that good enough isn't good enough when you're offshore and something fails. The design itself reflects Scandinavian sensibility about what matters on a cruising boat. Ergonomics are thoughtful. The companionway is positioned so you can see forward while standing below, critical for single-handing when you need to monitor conditions while working at the nav station. The cockpit is deep and secure, with high coamings that make you feel protected rather than exposed. The deck layout puts everything within reach of the cockpit, so sail controls and sheet adjustments don't require going forward in rough conditions. Storage is abundant and well organized, with lockers sized appropriately for actual gear rather than just creating volume. The galley is positioned amidships where motion is least, making it possible to prepare meals even when the boat is heeled over. The head is large enough to be comfortable, with good ventilation and access to through hulls for service. These seem like small details until you're living aboard and sailing solo, and then they become the difference between a boat that works and one that doesn't. Hallberg Rassy equipped these boats with quality systems from reputable manufacturers. The original auxiliary engines were typically Volvo diesels, known for reliability and parts availability. Electrical systems used quality panels and proper wire sizing. Through hulls were bronze rather than plastic. Winches were Lumar or Anderson, brands that last decades with basic maintenance. The rigging was properly sized and professionally installed. These weren't corners being cut to hit a price point. These were choices made by a builder that understood their boats would be taken seriously offshore by serious sailors. Now here's what makes the Hallberg Rassy 34 particularly perfect for men over 60. First, the size is ideal for aging bodies. At 60 plus, even men who've maintained fitness recognize that recovery takes longer. Injuries happen more easily, and there's no point in proving you can muscle through tasks that could be done smarter. A 34-foot boat has sails you can manage without winch overrides or excessive grinding. The anchor and chain are sized, so retrieval is work, but not injury-inducing. The boat is light enough that docking solo, while requiring attention and practice, doesn't demand split-second reactions or unusual strength. You can single-hand this boat competently and safely throughout your 60s, 70s and beyond. something that can't be said for larger vessels. Second, the boat's reputation and build quality provide peace of mind that matters more as you age. When you're young, breaking down and fixing problems is part of the adventure. When you're older, breakdowns are expensive, stressful, and potentially dangerous. Hallberg Rassy boats have earned a reputation for going where they're pointed and coming back, for having fewer surprises than boats from manufacturers that cut corners. That reliability isn't just convenience, it's safety. It's the confidence to cast off knowing your boat is fundamentally sound, that systems will work when you need them, that the vessel itself won't be what fails. Third, the boat is simple enough that one person can maintain it without requiring specialty tools, professional technicians for every task, or spending retirement savings on systems that are expensive to fix. The diesel engine is straightforward, serviceable by any competent mechanic or by owners who want to learn. The electrical system isn't filled with complex electronics that require proprietary software. The plumbing is accessible. The through hulls are reachable. Maintenance is time and attention, not constant crisis and expense. For men on fixed retirement incomes, this matters enormously. Fourth, the boat's design makes solo sailing genuinely enjoyable rather than exhausting. Many boats can be sailed single-handed, but most weren't designed for it, which means you're constantly working around limitations, making compromises, accepting that certain tasks are harder than they should be. The Hallberg Rassy 34 was designed when self-tailing winches were becoming standard, and roller furling was recognized as essential for short-handed sailing. The boats typically came equipped or were retrofitted with these features, meaning sail handling is straightforward. You can reef or change head sails from the cockpit. You can trim sheets without leaving the helm. You can manage the boat in increasing conditions without feeling overwhelmed or unsafe. This isn't just about capability. It's about whether sailing remains fun or becomes a chore you endure. Fifth, the boat has a community. Hallberg Rassy owners are loyal, knowledgeable, and helpful. Online forums dedicated to the brand are filled with decades of accumulated wisdom about systems, upgrades, maintenance, common issues, and solutions. When you own a Hallberg Rassy, you're not alone. You have access to collective knowledge that makes ownership easier and problem-solving faster. For solo sailors, especially those new to the lifestyle or to this specific boat, that community is invaluable. And sixth, the boat holds its value better than most production sailboats from the same era. Hallberg Rassy's reputation means that well-maintained examples sell reliably when owners are ready to move on. You're not buying a depreciating asset that will be worthless in 10 years. You're buying a boat that, if maintained properly, will retain significant value and find buyers when you decide to sell. For men over 60 thinking about whether this investment makes sense, the boat's residual value matters. You're not throwing money away. You're buying an asset that will serve you and can be liquidated if circumstances change. Now let me show you why, right now, in late 2025, is the perfect moment to acquire a Hallberg Rassy 34. Because the market dynamics have created opportunity that won't last. The sailboat market has softened significantly as recreational boating broadly declined post-pandemic. Owners who might have held on are deciding to sell, driven by rising costs, changing priorities, or simple recognition that they're not using their boats enough to justify ownership. The result is increased inventory of quality used sailboats at prices below historical averages. Hallberg Rassy 34s that would have commanded $45,000 to $55,000 in 2019 are now listing for $35,000 to $45,000, sometimes less if the owner is motivated or the boat needs cosmetic attention. That's a meaningful discount for a vessel whose fundamental value hasn't changed. At the same time, the chaos in the powerboat and outboard market has created distraction and opportunity. Dealers and lenders focused on liquidating powerboat inventory aren't paying attention to sailboats. Buyers scared off by the powerboat collapse aren't looking at sailing vessels. the attention and capital that might normally flow into the used sailboat market is absorbed elsewhere, which means less competition for quality boats and more room to negotiate on price. For a savvy buyer, this is the window. You're looking at boats that are proven, well-built, ideally sized, from a respected manufacturer, offered at discounts because of broad market softness and reduced competition. If you've been thinking about solo sailing, about having a boat that gives you options and freedom in retirement, this is the moment. Not 5 years from now, when everyone realizes sailboats were the smart play and prices rebound. Now, while the market is quiet and opportunity exists, let me walk you through exactly what to look for when evaluating a Hallberg Rassy 34, because not all examples are equal, and buying smart means knowing what matters. First, survey the hull and deck carefully. Hallberg Rassy built solid boats, but any vessel from the 1980s has lived through decades of sun, salt, water, and use. Look for osmotic blistering in the gel coat, which can indicate moisture intrusion into the laminate. Check the deck for soft spots, particularly around stanchion bases, chain plates, and hardware mounting points, which can indicate core saturation. Inspect the deck-to-hull joint carefully for any signs of movement or separation. A professional survey is essential and worth every dollar you spend, because problems that seem minor can be expensive to repair, and some issues are structural rather than cosmetic. Hire a surveyor who knows Hallberg Rassy boats specifically, someone who understands what's normal and what's concerning for this model. Second, evaluate the engine thoroughly. Most Hallberg Rassy 34s came with Volvo diesels, typically the 2003 model, which is a simple, reliable engine, but also one that's now decades old. Check the hour meter, but don't assume low hours mean the engine is perfect or high hours mean it's worn out. Diesel engines last thousands of hours with proper maintenance, but they deteriorate quickly with neglect. What matters is service history, evidence of regular maintenance, oil changes, impeller replacements, coolant system service. If the owner has records showing consistent care, that's worth more than claimed low hours. Have the engine professionally surveyed, compression tested, and evaluated for leaks, corrosion, and wear. Budget for the possibility that you'll need to rebuild or replace the engine, because that's a realistic cost of buying an older boat. A rebuilt Volvo 2003 or a replacement with a modern equivalent like a Yanmar or Beta Marine will cost between $8,000 and $12,000 installed. If the boat is otherwise perfect and priced right, don't let an old engine scare you off. Just factor the replacement cost into your evaluation. Third, inspect all systems carefully. Electrical, plumbing, steering, rigging. Sailboats are systems boats, meaning they're collections of interconnected components that all need to function for the vessel to be usable. Check the electrical panel for proper labeling, adequate circuit protection, and clean connections. Look for corroded terminals, undersized wiring, or jury-rigged additions, all of which indicate deferred maintenance or poor workmanship. Test all systems, navigation lights, interior lights, pumps, electronics. Check the plumbing for leaks, proper hose clamps, and functioning seacocks. Inspect the steering system for smooth operation and proper cable tension. Examine the rigging for broken strands, corrosion at terminals, and proper tension. Standing rigging should be replaced every 15 to 20 years, depending on use, which means boats from the 80s likely need new rigging unless it's been updated. Budget $5,000 to $7,000 for complete rigging replacement with modern materials. Fourth, assess the sails and sail handling systems. Original sails from the 80s are beyond service life and need replacement. Budget $3,000 to $5,000 for a basic cruising inventory, mainsail and 2 head sails. Check roller furling systems for smooth operation and proper maintenance. Look at winches for smooth operation and adequate servicing. These are consumables and upgrades, expected costs of bringing an older boat up to your standards. Fifth, evaluate the interior condition honestly. Cosmetics matter less than structure, but living aboard a boat with destroyed upholstery, delaminating wood trim, and pervasive mildew is miserable. Look past surface issues to underlying condition. Cushions can be recovered, wood can be refinished, but structural problems like broken furniture mounts, damaged cabinetry, or compromised joinery indicate bigger issues. A boat with cosmetic problems but solid bones is a better buy than one that looks pretty but has underlying structural concerns. Now, let's talk about realistic acquisition and preparation budgets, because understanding the total cost of entry is critical to making a smart decision. A well-maintained Hallberg Rassy 34 in ready-to-sail condition will cost between $35,000 and $45,000 in the current market. That's a boat with sound hull and deck, functioning systems, serviceable engine and sails you can use. It may need upgrades and improvements, but it's fundamentally sound and can be sailed immediately. A project boat, one that needs engine work, rigging replacement, systems overhaul, or significant repairs, might be available for $25,000 to $35,000. The lower purchase price is offset by the work required to make it reliable and safe. For a buyer with time, skills, and patience, a project boat can represent excellent value. For someone who wants to start sailing immediately, paying more for a ready boat makes sense. Beyond the purchase price, budget for survey and haul-out. Typically $1,500 to $2,000. Budget for immediate system servicing, things that need attention before you cast off for the first time, typically $2,000 to $5,000 depending on condition. Budget for safety equipment, life raft, EPIRB, proper ground tackle, through proper anchors and chain. Flares, first aid, usually $2,000 to $3,000 for complete outfitting. Budget for electronics upgrades if needed. Modern chart plotter, VHF radio, depth sounder, typically $2,000 to $4,000 for basic systems. All in, expect to spend between $40,000 and $60,000 to acquire and prepare a Hallberg Rassy 34 for serious cruising. That's less than the cost of a new mid-range powerboat engine, and it buys you a complete vessel ready for adventure. Now let me address the question that's probably forming in your mind. Why should a man over 60 choose sailing over powerboating, especially solo? The answers are practical, financial, and philosophical. Practically, sailboats offer independence that powerboats cannot match. A powerboat is dependent on fuel, which means you're always calculating range, always planning around fuel availability, always spending money on an expensive consumable. A sailboat moves by wind, which is free, abundant, and available everywhere. Yes, you have an engine for maneuvering and motor sailing when wind is absent, but your primary propulsion costs nothing. That independence is freedom. Financially, the operating costs of sailboats are dramatically lower than powerboats. Fuel consumption is minimal since the engine runs only when needed, not continuously. Maintenance costs on a small diesel are far lower than on outboards or gas engines. Insurance is typically cheaper for sailboats than equivalent powerboats. Mooring and marina fees are often lower. Over time, these differences add up to thousands of dollars annually, money that stays in your pocket rather than flowing to fuel docks and service centers. For retirees on fixed incomes, this matters enormously. Philosophically, sailing offers something that powerboating doesn't: engagement, challenge, satisfaction. Powerboating is about destination, getting from point A to point B, usually as quickly and comfortably as possible. Sailing is about the journey itself, about reading wind and water, about making decisions and seeing them play out, about connecting with the vessel and the environment in ways that require attention and skill. For men over 60, many of whom spent careers in demanding fields that required expertise and judgment, sailing provides continued engagement that keeps the mind active and the spirit challenged. It's not passive entertainment, it's active participation in something meaningful. Solo sailing amplifies all of this. When you're alone on a boat, every decision is yours, every success is yours, every mistake is yours to fix. There's clarity in that autonomy. satisfaction in self-reliance, and pride in competence that comes from handling challenges successfully. For men transitioning into retirement, often struggling with loss of professional identity and purpose, solo sailing provides structure, challenge, and accomplishment that fills voids left by career endings. The Hallberg Rassy 34 enables all of this in a package that's appropriately sized, properly built, and reasonably affordable. It's not the boat for everyone. If you want to impress people with size or speed, look elsewhere. If you need multiple cabins for family cruising, you'll want something larger. If you're physically unable to manage sails and ground tackle, you might need to consider differently. But if you're a man over 60 looking for a boat that will take you seriously cruising, that you can handle confidently alone, that won't bankrupt you to own and operate, that will hold its value and provide years of reliable service, the Hallberg Rassy 34 is simply the best answer available in the current market. Let me share what ownership actually looks like, because understanding the reality matters more than romantic visions. You'll spend time on maintenance. Boats require attention, especially older boats, especially boats kept in the water. You'll need to stay on top of systems, address issues before they become problems, and accept that some weekends will be spent working rather than sailing. But this isn't burden. It's part of ownership, part of the relationship you develop with the boat, part of what makes it yours. You'll spend money. Beyond the acquisition cost, you'll have ongoing expenses for insurance, mooring or slip fees, annual haul-out and bottom paint, systems maintenance, and unexpected repairs. Budget $3,000 to $5,000 annually for these costs if the boat is well maintained, more if you're catching up on deferred maintenance or making improvements. This is real money, and it needs to be factored into retirement planning. But compared to other forms of recreation, it's modest. You'll spend time learning. Even experienced sailors need time to learn a new boat's characteristics, quirks, and capabilities. Solo sailing requires developing skills and confidence that take practice. You'll make mistakes. You'll have frustrating days. You'll question decisions, but you'll also have moments of pure satisfaction when everything works, when you bring the boat into an unfamiliar anchorage perfectly, when you handle conditions that would have intimidated you months earlier. The learning never stops, and that's part of the appeal. You'll spend time alone. Solo sailing means solitude, hours and sometimes days, with only your thoughts and the boat for company. For some people, this is uncomfortable or unwanted. For others, it's exactly what they're seeking. If you're someone who processes life through quiet reflection, who finds peace in solitude, who enjoys your own company, solo sailing will feel like home. If you need constant social interaction and stimulation, it might feel isolating. Be honest with yourself about what you want. You'll have adventures, real ones, not manufactured tourist experiences. You'll anchor in quiet coves. You'll watch sunrises from the cockpit. You'll handle squalls and make landfalls. You'll meet other cruisers and share stories. You'll visit places accessible only by boat. You'll have experiences that are yours alone, that can't be packaged or sold, that come from putting yourself out there and engaging with the world on your terms. This is what the boat enables, and it's why men over 60 are choosing this path. Here's the strategy I recommend if you're serious about making this happen. First, get educated before you start looking at boats. Read everything you can about the Hallberg Rassy 34 specifically. Join online forums and ask questions. Connect with owners and ask about their experiences. Learn what problems are common, what upgrades are worthwhile, what to avoid. This education is free and invaluable. Second, get your finances in order. Know exactly how much you can spend on acquisition and how much you can allocate for annual operating costs. Be realistic and conservative. It's better to buy less boat than you can technically afford and have comfortable margin than to stretch financially and be stressed. Third, take your time finding the right boat. Good examples exist, but you may need to look at multiple boats before finding one that's right. Don't rush. Don't compromise on fundamentals to save a few $1,000s. The right boat is worth waiting for, and the wrong boat will cost you far more in stress and expense than you save on purchase price. Fourth, hire professionals for survey and evaluation. Don't try to save money by skipping expert evaluation. A thorough survey costs $2,000 but can save you tens of thousands by identifying problems before purchase or giving you negotiating leverage to adjust price or have issues addressed by the seller. Fifth, budget realistically for preparation and shakedown. Even a boat that surveys well will need attention and adjustment as you learn its systems and make it yours. Give yourself 6 months to a year to sort out details, make upgrades, and build confidence before attempting ambitious cruising. This isn't wasted time. It's investment in reliability and safety. The sailboat market in late 2025 offers opportunity for men over 60 who understand what they're looking at. While the powerboat industry collapses, while outboard manufacturers teeter on bankruptcy, while dealers liquidate and fortunes are lost, quality sailboats from respected builders are available at reasonable prices to buyers who know what matters. The Hallberg Rassy 34 represents the ideal intersection of size, build quality, reputation, and value for solo sailing. It's a boat that will serve you well through your 60s, 70s, and beyond, that will hold its value, that will take you places and give you experiences that justify every dollar an hour invested. This isn't about chasing youth or denying age. It's about recognizing that life after 60 can be rich with adventure, challenge, and satisfaction if you make choices that enable those experiences. A boat is just a tool, but the right tool opens possibilities. The Hallberg Rassy 34 is that tool for men seeking independence and adventure on the water. The marine industry is in chaos. Fortunes are being lost. But opportunity exists for those who look in the right places, who understand value independent of market hype, who recognize that what everyone else is ignoring might be exactly what you need. While others chase depreciating powerboats or flee the marine market entirely, you could be acquiring a vessel that will serve you reliably, cost-effectively, and joyfully for decades. The question isn't whether a Hallberg Rassy 34 is the best and cheapest sailboat for men over 60 to go solo sailing. The evidence is clear. The question is whether you're ready to act while the opportunity exists, while prices are favorable, while the market is distracted and competition is minimal. Because markets shift, windows close. Opportunities that seem obvious in hindsight were invisible to most people in the moment. Right now, in late 2025, the moment is here. The boats are available. The prices are right. The only question is whether you'll recognize it and act, or whether you'll look back in 5 years and wish you had. The water is waiting. The adventures are real. The boat exists. And men over 60 who understand what I've shown you here are already casting off lines and discovering what freedom actually looks like. The choice is yours.